Hey, what's up, guys? Another installment of Yinzers Yak, and I am Jesse, and Marty is with me as usual.
Hello, hello, hello.
The usual. This will be our recap episode. We're putting it up a little late this week because a couple life things happen. You run into that sometimes, but we're gonna try and get it up right at the start of the Thursday night game, so you can still see our insight for the game as you're watching it.
Yeah, we'll get started here. As always, we'll start with the Homer talk this week. Pittsburgh versus Cleveland. I had looking at the pick here. I had Cleveland win this one, 30-17. Ended up being pretty close. Final score was 33-18 in this one. And one big takeaway from this is Cleveland sucks. They look terrible. They're awful. They have no direction.
Yeah, those first like couple weeks, they did look decent, and they looked like they kind of had an idea. And then I think with the firing of all coaches, we'll get to that. I think it kind of sent them off in a spiral. So I think that maybe this upcoming week against the Chiefs here is going to be a little ugly too. So we'll see.
Yeah, they seem to have an identity. The first couple weeks, they seem to be I guess you'd call a complete team. You know, everything was working for them. The offense was lacking a little bit, but everything kind of started to slip off. And then going into this past weekend, we heard the talks of Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley not really getting along when it came to the play calling. And we had touched on it actually in our preview last week regarding whether Hugh Jackson was on the hot seat losing this game or not. And well, clearly he was because he got fired, and so did Todd Haley. With
Clearly, his seat was already heated before we even spoke on it. So,
Yeah, no, it definitely was. And then coming in here to Pittsburgh and performing the way that they did, just kind of he got the boot after that. That was the last nail in the coffin basically for him. And then I guess from what I read, more so Todd Haley was fired just because of all of the issues that he was having with Jackson, the inner turmoil with the team. Cleveland wanted nothing to do that, so they did away with both of them.
yeah, I don't know if it was a great move to do it at the point that they're in. They have the bye week coming up in 2 weeks here, and they're playing the Chiefs this game to just kind of clean house after this loss. But six straight coaches that they lost after they played the Steelers for a second time around in the season. So I don't know if you can call us the Browns killer or anything, but it's a little interesting fact there. So I think they should have waited at least until like they hit the bye week, just so they could maybe recoup and get back on track. Because I think obviously firing the offensive coordinator and the head coach is a little shot to the ego of all the players on the team. So we'll see how they respond with Kansas City. I mean, I think they were already going to get pretty blown out to start, let alone this happening. So we'll see how bad this game gets in Cleveland, which, by the way, their defense is ranked 30th in the league. So you can just imagine what Mahomes will get a chance to tee off on.
Yeah, this could end up being a really, really bad game for Cleveland. Really good one. Nice, easy win for the Chiefs. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer that when a coach or somebody gets fired, I think the players tend to step up. I'm not saying it's going to be the case, but I don't think they're just going to go out there and give up either. And again, we'll have to see. But I guess we can move past all the stuff that happened with Cleveland. This was a pretty good day for the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off the bye week. They continue to look like they are firing on all cylinders. On special teams, I could say special teams is probably still the roughest aspect for the Steelers, but the defense and the
Yeah.
offense look great.
What the hell was that play on the
I
safety? Huh?
apparently they forgot they had to catch the ball. That was a little bit ridiculous. I have never, I can't recall ever seeing that in an NFL game in my life ever.
The fact that just nobody on special teams, special teams, that's their job to, go out there and take the free kick and to not know that they have to recover it, no matter if they call a fair catch or not. I mean, that's the same for a regular kickoff. You have to field the ball at least if you're going to fair catch it or not. But I was just very perplexed by that play, and could have definitely cost the Steelers some serious momentum and a possible loss there. But obviously,
Yeah, no, I mean, luckily that didn't happen. That was a pretty boneheaded play. That's simple stuff that yeah, that's what these guys on special teams are meant to do. I mean, Switzer, he comes out now and again as a wide receiver, but primarily he is out there on special teams. That is something that just cannot happen whatsoever.
yeah, and especially somebody like him who's he's been returning for as long as he has. He was return guy on multiple other teams, so for him to not know that he had to feel that was just a little bit goofy. Um, Talking about miscues and moments, Big Ben broke his index finger on his non-throwing hands in the second quarter of the game last weekend. If anything, I think he played better once he broke his finger as opposed to before it was broken. So maybe going forward, this doesn't mean a setback, but obviously, looking forward. Now that Baltimore knows that, maybe try and target hand and stuff because it won't be as stable and such like that. Obviously, not the throwing hand, so it's not going to affect too much on the ball through the air. But I mean, his non-throwing hand does help him hold the ball and stuff too, so it could play a factor in this game.
Yeah, it definitely could. I think when you get hurt like that in the middle of a game, kind of the adrenaline just helps you to get through it. That's part of it, so it could be a different story come Sunday. Going in cold, how badly it's broken, we don't really know how out of shape it was, I guess you could say. But he definitely did seem to look better after the fact. The first quarter, I mean, I said, the offense looked really good this week. Well, the first quarter they really didn't. They kind of looked lost again. They just could not get anything going whatsoever. Maybe some rust from the bye week, something like that. But after that, it was they just kind of steamrolled ahead. James Conner leading the way, obviously, for this offense this past week.
Yeah, before we go trail off into offense and stuff like that, the D for the Steelers, I thought Joe Hayden had a really good game this past week.
I think he's playing his way to another Pro Bowl this year. I really do. He's been phenomenal.
Yeah, he had two passes deflected and an interception this game. And I think if we had some type of other corner on the other side, that our secondary would be really phenomenal, especially with, Morgan Burnett coming back this week. We'll see how he played or continues to play. I'm sorry. Didn't really see like too much of what he was doing in this game. Just because I think Edmonds had the majority of snaps over Burnett as they're still trying to work him in and stuff. But look to see him definitely more this upcoming weekend. So we'll see if he plays a factor. And he was very good in Green Bay, just injury prone. So if he can stay healthy, I think he'll definitely be a positive addition to our defense. Like I said, we just need to fill that gap of the other side of cornerbacks, which I think Sensabaugh and Sutton both did pretty well this past weekend. Obviously, you don't have the top elite receivers in Cleveland to cover. Landry, obviously, pretty good, but I wouldn't even consider him under the top 10. So, but I thought they did a good job. I just think somebody needs to match the level of play that Hayden's having right now. Like you said, I do think he's trying to work towards a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, if Burnett could come back and just fill in, have the kind of success that he had in Green Bay, and then obviously stay healthy, it would be wonderful for the secondary for the Steelers. But just talking about the D all around, they played phenomenally this past weekend. Looking at some numbers here, only 237 total yards. 132 of those were in the just in the first half. I liked what I saw from them. Obviously, they're I feel like the past couple weeks I've been talking about them, performing well against not so great offenses. But you still gotta take that for what it is. They performed well, and I think they'll be able to keep that going. It's going to be a real test against Cleveland, based on what Cleveland did to them earlier on this season, or not. Sorry, not Cleveland, Baltimore coming up this upcoming week. It's going to be a test for them to see what they can do, see if they can hold them in check as opposed to what they did earlier on this season. If they can do that, then I think we can continue to expect good things from this defense. But if they go out and they get blown out, it's not going to be a good look for them.
I think too it's a little bit tricky because this Baltimore offense looks great one week and terrible the
Yeah,
next
they're
week.
all over the
So
place. It seems like.
yeah, so it's like I don't know what to expect, and I'm sure they don't really know what to expect for this week. The matchup, I don't know if they're going to see obviously getting the addition of Ty Montgomery in the trade deadline. I don't know if they're going to try and run it more now that they tried to add to the run game, or they're going to use him more in like a pass scenario, as you know he used to be a receiver, went to a running back, now he kind of plays both. So we'll see what they'd like to use him as. I think he's going to be more of a utility guy. They're just going to see what works with him, kind of game to game. So if it's working, then he's running the ball and everything's going good, then they're going to use him primarily as a running back. If they pass to him and the passes are working to him, then they're going to use him as mainly a wide receiver or a passing back. So um, I think I think it's going to just continue throughout the season for the Ravens that their offense is going to kind of be up and down, but as long as their defense stays playing like they are, that they're gonna be in the run for not only the division but win some playoff games here.
Yeah, the defense is what's really kept them alive with how up and down the offense. As obviously with the divisional game coming up here, I expect the Ravens to come in ready. Joe Flacco always seems to play well against the Steelers, as does Ben against the Ravens. So it'll be an interesting
especially
matchup.
especially at home.
Yeah,
The Ravens love to beat us at home. We have a 10-12 record against them since Ben started playing away. So we'll see how that turns out.
yeah, we'll get into that matchup a little bit more or later on this week. But continuing with the Steelers' offense, touch on this real quick. The Wi-Fi connection seems to be pretty strong with Ben and AB. They didn't put up spectacular numbers by any means. AB had 2 touchdowns, 6 receptions on 8 targets for 74 yards. What I like to see there is not a lot of missed passes, only 2 of them going to AB. It like I said, the numbers don't necessarily jump off the stat chart for you, but I did like what I saw from them this week, especially early on in the game, which was something that had been lacking in the past few weeks here. They just couldn't seem to they weren't clicking early on in the game. Is what I'm trying to say, but they managed to do that this week, which is a good sign.
Yeah, I think too. We talked, previous weeks, and them not getting splash plays and stuff. Obviously, he's not getting like 4 or 5 of them a game like he did last year. But he had a 40-yard touchdown with Ben scrambling out of the pocket, and obviously him being wide open, 5 yards from the end zone, just catching it and walking in. So you like to see those plays from them, especially with the talks of their chemistry being off and stuff. And my mom actually thinks that did Ben sleep with AB's baby mama or something? That have a little chemistry off and something was going on there. But I don't know. We just talked about it before, so I'm not going to go into big details about it. But I just think it's the non-forcing of plays and passes towards AB's direction, but Ben looks to him when he needs him, and I think that shows just on the stat chart with 2 touchdowns in the game against Cleveland. Obviously, didn't have over 100 yards. I mean, 74 isn't a bad stat line, especially with the 2 touchdowns. It's just we're not used to seeing lower than 100 yards per game for AB.
Yeah, no, it is a little bit weird, but he's doing the lower numbers that he is putting up. They're important ones, especially with the 2 touchdowns. So I'm not at all really concerned about them like I have been in previous weeks. I think they're just going to keep rolling and keep getting the chemistry back together. Still sticking with the offense. We're going to touch on this one more time and probably next week as well. The Steelers don't need Le'Veon Bell. If anybody hasn't figured that out yet or thinks that they do need Le'Veon Bell, you're absolutely crazy. Not even so much for what Connor has done for them, because obviously he has proven that he can be just as efficient as Le'Veon Bell. I think this team is on the up and up right now, and I think bringing the toxic attitude of Le'Veon Bell into this locker room is the last thing that this team needs. They don't need somebody going in there with a boo-boo face, especially if Lev Bell does come back and James Conner would somehow get the bulk of the runs, which we'll get into it, but I don't think he will if Le'Veon Bell comes back. But you don't need anybody trying to bring this team down. The goal for everybody on this team is to win a Super Bowl, and Le'Veon Bell wants paid. He doesn't give a crap about anything else. He's made that very clear. And unfortunately, the Steelers are probably going to bring him back. It's just frustrating on the outside as a fan. Maybe in the locker room the guys don't feel that way. I mean, some of them probably do, some of them probably don't. But James Conner has done more than enough to earn this number one job and to stay in there. I think whether Le'Veon Bell comes back or obviously if he doesn't, but from a fan's standpoint, I really hope Bell does not come back, because they do not need him in that locker room, and they don't need him on the field either, because James Conner is doing wonderful. Speaking on that, just looking at his numbers from this past weekend, James carried the ball 24 times, 146 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He also had 5 receptions for 66 yards through the air. A little bit of quick math, that is 212 yards from scrimmage, which is phenomenal for him and the Steelers team.
Yeah, no, you can't really argue with the numbers that he's putting up lately. I just I completely agree with you with the toxicity that's going to be the locker room in about a week and a half here coming up. Bell has until I believe it's November 10th to come sign his franchise tag, and whether he plays that first game back or whatever, it's yet to be seen. But I believe with all the attitudes that the linemen and stuff had for his lack of communication, his lack of wanting to come back to the team, I think with him coming back, it's just going to add another element of the drama that we haven't had in a couple weeks, which is wonderful, by the way. I'm gonna knock on wood. I just think going forward that once the Steelers look at the stats by week, week to week, that they're just going to see that why pay this man an outrageous amount of money if his backup up until this year, his backup is putting up just as good of stats, if not better. I know he put up 5 more touchdowns than Bell did last year at this point, and if he scores 1 more touchdown this week, he ties Bell's overall output of next year or of last year. Bell had 10 total touchdowns, and Connor's at 9 right now. So I think going forward that they just need to look at these numbers and stuff and kind of ask themselves, do we really want 2 people and to pay him unnecessarily? I just think that Connor needs to be confident in himself and just continue doing what he's doing. Just a little interesting fact here. James Conner is not only the leading rusher against a stacked box, which is 8 or more defenders this year, with 46 attempts. No one in the league has more yards than him at 217 against a stacked box, or has more touchdowns at 6 against the stacked box. So he's doing things that Bell would do if say last year against the stacked box, scoring when he needs to score, knowing what he needs to do to score, knowing what he needs to do to get first downs. It's very frustrating that we have to keep talking about it, and obviously we're going to talk about it next week because he'll be back then and all that. It's just, like you said, frustrating from a fan standpoint, because it's just toxic, toxic, toxic. I'm so sick of talking about it and hearing it, but it's something that needs to be said. That it needs to be reiterated because I just think it's stupid for Bell to come back and them have like a running back committee to take that away from Connor after how well he's done.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the biggest issue. Just, I mean, I like Mike Tomlin. A lot of people don't, but just knowing him, Bell's gonna come back. He is already agreed to sit 2 weeks, just to get into football shape, whatnot. Uh, but as soon as he's ready to go, Connor's gonna warm the bench. Mike Tomlin, unless Lev Bell goes out there and stinks to join up, Mike Tomlin's gonna run his wheels off for the second half of the season, which is fine. But I don't think that's the kind of treatment that James Conner deserves. And I mean, it's why it's so frustrating from a fan standpoint. You can look at this team and it is clear as day that they just don't need him. They don't need to waste the money on him. They don't need the drama and all the BS involved with it. You have a perfectly capable number one back in James Conner, who has proven himself at this point of the season and shows absolutely no signs of stopping. So I guess we'll just, we'll continue to talk about it and see where it goes. I would love for the Steelers to just rescind the tag. I think the biggest problem and the reason they don't want to do that is because it's pretty simple. They don't want New England to pick them up. I really believe that. Like, I just really do. I feel like the second they would rescind that tag, one way or another, New England or some other competing team would find a way to get him. But I still think at that cost, it's better than having him come back and just screw the chemistry of this team up completely.
Yeah, just looking at it also, staying on the Connor subject, Connor is averaging the same amount of yards per carry as Todd Gurley this season, through many less attempts. And I just think it goes to just show that Connor is something special. Nobody thought it coming out of the gate. Nobody really thought it last year, but last year he averaged over 4.2 yards a carry. So he's putting up good numbers last year also, despite only having 144 yards. I think going forward that they need to have full faith in Connor and just kind of see where that takes them, as opposed to just sitting him and letting Bell take over the show.
And I mean, just one more thing, and we can finish up here with the Pitt Cleveland game. But the only concern I see with this is if Connor gets hurt, like we have Ridley right behind him, and that really doesn't excite me. It doesn't necessarily worry me, but I don't feel good about it. It would be nice to have a Le'Veon Bell type player even back there. That's really the only concern, but we can't live in our fears of that happening. We just have to let it play out.
Yeah, no, and just to reference back to what I was talking about, Gurley has over 30 more carries than Connor does. So he's obviously, getting more attempts a game and stuff. So he's putting up more numbers. Gurley still has yet to have a bye also. So he's essentially going to be in the lead if he continues his success, if going forward, if they're going to be battling neck and neck, no injuries, but Gurley and him will be in, the top two in the league.
Yeah, I mean, you could even make the argument the two games that the Steelers virtually had no run game because they're working from behind. If you don't have that scenario, Bell's probably neck and neck with him, or not Bell. James Conner is probably neck and neck with Gurley in terms of attempts and darn close in yards too, more than likely.
Yep. But like we said, we're going to stop emphasizing this, and we are going to talk about it a little next week, just because obviously Bell has to come back. But I'm very sick of hearing about it and talking about it as a fan.
Yeah, hopefully it can end here pretty soon. Just a couple more things here, real quick. With this Cleveland Pittsburgh game, everybody knows I like Baker Mayfield, so I figured I'd throw a little topic in regarding him. Whether or not anybody, myself, sees something special in him compared to past Cleveland quarterbacks. And the one thing that really sticks out for me is he just competes. He doesn't come off the field moping. He's not down. He's ready to get back out there. He's a battling, competing quarterback who absolutely wants to win. And I honestly think the best thing that could have happened to him to this point in the season is Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley getting fired, because we've all heard how toxic Todd Haley's relationships with his quarterbacks can be, especially here in Pittsburgh. Everything we heard from the outside I think Greg Williams stepping in for Cleveland as the interim is going to be a good thing. Just from watching the Hard Knocks over the summer, you would have thought the Browns were going to win the Super Bowl, but one thing that I noticed from all that is Greg Williams just seems to be a no nonsense, no BS kind of guy, and I think that's what Cleveland needs at this point in time. Not that they're going to turn this thing around, but I don't think it's going to get any worse from this point on with him at the helm, at least as an interim. But we'll have to see. What do you think regarding Baker? Do you think he's better or worse than the previous 29 Cleveland quarterbacks?
There's not a lot to kind of compare him to, because obviously not many have fared too well in Cleveland. Um, I do see what you're saying about his drive and how he wants to win games and stuff, but I also think so does all of Cleveland.
Yeah.
Anybody that's there after all they went through would kind of have the same mentality as him. Is he putting the numbers up? Not really. I like I said, I'm always not quick to judge with this and not quick to say, oh, let's write him off, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the man has more touchdowns than interceptions in Cleveland. That's a feat in itself.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
he's 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1,400 yards. Obviously hasn't played all the games this year so far, so he's not putting up phenomenal numbers. He had just 180 yards against us, but the 2 previous weeks he had over 200 yards. It's a rookie quarterback. He's not going to put up fucking Patrick Mahomes numbers. It's just not going to happen. I mean, Mahomes is something else this year. I think going forward, he's just going to be an average quarterback. Looking at it, he's going to look like Kirk Cousins. He's going to look like Alex Smith. He's going to have really great weeks, and he's going to have really shit weeks. And then most of the time, he's just going to be kind of anywhere in between in the middle. So we'll see going forward, but I don't see him being elite in the next 2 years, but I see him doing the job in Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't see him like just from the brief little bit that we've seen this season. I don't see him folding like so many rookie Cleveland quarterbacks have, or just not getting that chance. Like, Hugh Jackson obviously believed in him over Tyrod. I think it was the right move. You could argue that the Browns would have 3 more wins had he started the season as a starter, just based on stuff that happened to them. But he's definitely not going to be elite, but I think he's going to be the leader of getting things somewhat turned around there in Cleveland for sure. But we'll just have to wait and see how everything plays out after everything kind of imploded this past week.
Yeah, and with them facing the Chiefs this upcoming week, I
Yeah.
look to see many pass attempts from him after they fall behind real quickly.
Yeah, no, it has the making to be an interesting game, at least for Kansas City fans. All right, we can move on from the Homer talk. We spent quite a bit of time on that, but that's okay. That's why we are Yinzers Yak, right? We're gonna move on to the other games that we picked this week. I'm gonna start off with one of the games that I picked. I had Green Bay and the Rams. I had Green Bay actually winning this one 24-20 in somewhat of a close game, and it actually turned out to be pretty close in the end. However, LA did pull this one out with a late field goal, 29-27. This is a pretty big win for LA. I thought going into this game that Green Bay was one of those teams to beat in the league, and I still think they are even after this close loss. Green Bay did one of the bigger factors that I had going into this game. One of the things Green Bay needed to do was they needed to manage Todd Gurley on the ground, and I really think they did that. He had 25 carries for 114 yards, which you don't want to see anybody go over, the 100-yard mark. But I figured that's what they needed to do to contain him, and they did a great job on the ground. However, they forgot that he is a factor in the pass game, and they gave up 81 yards and a touchdown to him through the air. So in the end, they really didn't contain Todd Gurley enough, and Todd Gurley once again carried this Rams team along with Jared Goff to a victory. Going into the third quarter, Green Bay They gave up 17 points in the third quarter, which really cost Green Bay. Their defense kind of let them down at the end of the day. I think for the most part they had done their job to manage Green Bay and this offense up until that point. But when it came to crunch time, they just weren't able to do it. I also thought that they weren't going to be able to get a lot of pressure on Jared Goff. They managed to get 5 sacks on him this week, which, again, they did their job, but it just came down to crunch time. And when they needed to stop them, they just weren't not
And
able
Ty
to.
Montgomery, that's why you lost your job.
Do we have we heard if that was true or not? Because he was saying that he did what he was told. He was told to bring that ball out. That's what I heard.
I don't care what you're told. I don't bring that ball out of the end zone.
No, I mean I agree with you, but I'm just saying.
You have over 2 minutes with Aaron Rodgers. I don't take that out of the end zone to risk happen. I'm not going to risk anything. And then look what happened. The worst possible scenario once you take that ball out of the end zone. No, definitely not.
Yeah, no, that was obviously a big was wafu. We use the word wafu for Green Bay. I still
No,
think.
that
Sorry,
was a real big oof.
oof. Yeah, we'll go oof wafu. Same thing. I've heard wafu before, but yeah, that really is what cost them in the end because you have that chance to give Aaron Rodgers the ball, and we all know what he's able to do on clutch
Aaron Rodgers
situations.
had over 2 minutes to do something with
Yeah,
the ball. That's like Aaron Rodgers could
you
go
might as well give him a
out into
quarter.
the
That's a
crowd.
quarter for him.
I was gonna say he might as well go out to the crowd, get some nachos, get a drink, come back, and still be able to hike the ball and score in time. I just, I think, in me not even being a Green Bay fan, I was as frustrated as Green Bay fans that even happened.
Yeah, no, like to take the ball basically away from him in that opportunity, that was just absolutely it was ludicrous, it was silly, it was stupid, and it cost Ty his job as we saw. But yeah, no, this just continue with Green Bay. I said last week that I thought they were the team to beat in the league, and I really still think they are. And it just comes down to that Aaron Rodgers factor. When you actually give him the ball and you give him a chance, he's going to make it happen for you. And I guarantee you, had they had those 2 minutes to drive down the field, he would have absolutely made something happen for them. They
All
were,
they needed was a field goal. They didn't
yeah,
even need a touchdown at that point. They would have easily won the game.
yeah,
I don't see Aaron Rodgers being shut down at all in that situation. So they win the game if he doesn't fumble that. And
no,
that's how we talked about going in the game it would be back and forth. Whoever has the ball last
mm-hmm.
would score and win it. And that's exactly what it came down to. Green Bay had the chance to win, but they fumbled it and screwed up the game.
Yeah, no, I mean it. I feel like I'm continuing to ride him, but Aaron Rodgers is really all this team needs. They could use some help on defense, but give him the ball, let him take care of it, and all will be well. I would say 99.9% of the time. But obviously that didn't happen. Looking forward for Green Bay, I'll say it again. I still think they are a team to beat at 3-3-1. Their schedule going forward, they have New England up next, coming up on Sunday, which is going to be a fantastic game for Sunday night. But after that, Green Bay's schedule is one of the easiest in the league for the second half of the season. So if they could pull off a win, or even if they lose in New England, their season by far is not over. Just with the games that they have left, they have a chance to almost win out just looking at their schedule. And I think they'd be able to do that. That's why I think they're still a team to beat. Just with that schedule that's left, they could put themselves in really good position in the division and the league standings as a whole.
Yeah, I still have faith in this Green Bay team, even though their defense is very lackluster at sometimes. But they played a really good game against a really difficult Rams team, and like I said, I think they would have handed the Rams their first loss if it weren't for Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it would have came down to that field goal, and that's what would have done it for them. Just one more thing with this game. Todd Gurley, once again, proving why he is going to be the league MVP. I know this past week I had talked Patrick Mahomes up, and I still believe it's a close race between the two of them, but just the numbers that he is putting up, that Todd Gurley is putting up, and what he has been able to do to help carry this team through running and
Disgusting.
through the air. Yeah, it's disgusting. It's like these are Madden football type numbers that he is putting up. It's absolutely ludicrous. finger. I just, as a football fan, not even a Rams fan or anything like that. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he breaks records. He's on pace to do that here with some statistics. I'm rooting for him. I really am. It's absolutely amazing to see something like this, to see what he's doing.
And God, please break the chain of quarterbacks winning the
Yeah,
MVP.
that would
So
be
sick of
great
it.
too. It really would.
Oh man. All right. Well, I'm gonna go into one of the games that I picked. Baltimore versus Carolina. Baltimore after this game was 4-4, and Carolina was 5-2. Final score of this game was 36-21. Carolina over Baltimore. This score doesn't really say much as to how the game was. Carolina kind of just dominated.
Which you said you
Despite
called this. You called them tearing apart this Ravens defense, and I wouldn't say they tear them apart, but they pick them apart.
I was going to say pretty close. You put up 36 points against a defense that hasn't let up that many points yet this season, and I think you're showing that you're true contenders here. Cam obviously had another wonderful game, and I talked him up before. Like you said, you were riding Rodgers. I'm going to ride Newton all the way for this whole talk here. But Cam had 219 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. He had 52 yards rushing and a touchdown on the ground. So 3 total touchdowns for Cam. Obviously helping this offense just kind of steamroll over Baltimore. Baltimore got a couple later scores, but going into the half, it was 24-7 Carolina over Baltimore. So I think that just goes to show that Carolina just kind of went into defensive mode and didn't really try and score too much after that. They were pretty comfortable with the lead they had. And like I said, didn't really need to worry about it. So Baltimore, their defense, I don't know if it's getting figured out or if it's just not competing as high of a level as it was earlier, but it looks to be on the downward. They're still pretty dominant in every category, but they are starting to kind of get picked apart, obviously, with these couple losses lately. And with the offense not really giving them any help, I think it's kind of important that one side of the ball works. That to win games, you can't really suck at both and expect to win a game. And I think their offense and defense was a little exposed here for this game. Obviously, not very impressive stats for Baltimore on either end. Flacco had 192 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. His passer rating was 56.8. So obviously not very great. And running, their leading rusher had 49 yards. And I'm not going to call out their run game on this. Obviously, they were behind very quickly in this game, so they're not really going to resort to having the run. But I think in order for them to have more of a two-dimensional offense, that they need to still run the ball when they can. They have Lamar Jackson. He carried it 3 times and had 26 yards. So obviously something works with him. So maybe incorporate him into little, shovel passes or, stupid little handoffs to him just to kind of switch it up and maybe open up the pass game a little bit.
I
But
almost feel like they should make him the feature back, man.
Yeah, no, I think they should. And with the pickup of Ty Montgomery this week, I think they're going to try and open up the run game a little bit. But I think they need to utilize Jackson more just for his legs and stuff because he's fun to watch. He's about the only thing fun to watch on the Ravens side. But with the Ravens giving up 386 total yards, obviously it's not like, oh my gosh, numbers, but it's a decent amount of yards. And just the pure dominance by the Panthers just sure did allow for everyone to kind of step back and just say, wow, like to this defense is slowly starting to crumble, or this offense just isn't doing enough to keep them in games. Obviously, Carolina is a great team, but I think this game was a eye opener for Baltimore, especially going into a week against the Steelers. The NFC South Division too. Oh my goodness, Carolina, Atlanta, and the Saints. Wow, that's going to be a fight to the end, and I see up until week 17 we don't have a clear cut winner for the division. If the Carolina just keeps steamrolling like the Saints are, it's going to be back and forth. And I believe, if I am recalling correctly, they play each other week 17. So we'll see how that pans out. But this is going to be a fight to the end for that division.
Yeah, they do. They go. Carolina's at New Orleans week 17, so I could definitely come down to the division that week. It's going to be an important week 17 matchup more than likely.
Most definitely. I guess we'll just roll into your pick then with that, because that's about all I have to say with the wonderful, wonderful play of Cam Newton.
It's always good to see the Ravens lose too. We can add that in there. Nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Next game up, I had Tampa Bay and Cincinnati. A bit of a head scratcher as to why I picked this one, because I thought this was going to be a pretty boring one. That's what I talked about last week. Like, who really cares about this game? It kind of has no meaning. I mean, it
Spoiler, spoiler. It wasn't a boring game.
no, it was not a boring game at all. It turned out to be actually a really good game that the Bengals almost bungled in the end. They had this one firmly in hand, and then, believe it or not, the Fitzmagic came back for Tampa Bay, and he brought them all the way back just about to win this game. But this was a back and forth game. I had talked about how Tampa was, they've been able to put up numbers or points rather all season, despite the I guess you'd say the turmoil at the quarterback position. They put up a total of 576 yards on this terrible, horrible, awful Cincinnati defense. Still weren't able to get it done. Get back here to the final score. The final score was actually 37-34 Tampa Bay. I had Tampa Bay winning this game. Unfortunately, they did not. So that is a loss for me in the pick column this week. But this game was just chaos. That's the one word that I can use to describe it, with how bad the defense was. Then you have Jameis Winston got benched, I believe it was in the third quarter, and you have Fitzpatrick coming in and almost bringing them back to win this game. It was a very, very exciting game to watch, that's for sure. And I can confirm, people, Fitzmagic is back, and he will be starting this upcoming Sunday.
Let's play the game of, in 10 quarters, how many interceptions has he thrown? You know?
Who?
Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston has thrown 10 interceptions.
In 10 quarters.
In 10
okay.
quarters, yes.
I want to put this into perspective. It took Drew Brees 180 quarters to throw one of those. So just a little interesting fact there. I think that the numbers are just, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think the numbers there are just a little skewed. I think Drew Brees might be a little bit better of a quarterback than Jameis Winston.
Not by a lot, but a little.
And throwing 4 interceptions before being benched, I think he should have been benched after the third one. But I guess after they score a pick 6 on your last interception, then they finally have to bench you.
Yeah, no, I would hope so. I don't really believe that Ryan Fitzpatrick should have been taken out in the first place after struggling just after 2 weeks. It just could have been an off period for him. We talk about him being a flash in the pan with all the teams he's been with, but I think they should have let him play through that, and Tampa might be better off than they are right now. But even sitting at 3-4, this division is obviously still up in the air, despite what Carolina and New Orleans are doing. We'll see if he can maintain. But just like a quick look at Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick's numbers. Each of them have had 4 games. Winston has started 4 of those games. Winston's numbers, he has 96 completions on 148 attempts, 1,181 yards, 6 TDs, and 10 interceptions. Going to Fitzpatrick in essentially the same span of time, games-wise, 98 completions, 144 attempts, 1,550 yards, 13 TDs, and 5 interceptions. A bulk of those TDs came in the 2 weeks that he was off of the Fitzmagic, or the Fitzmagic had went out, so to speak. It just goes back to I don't understand why they took him out. He was just all of a sudden on such a short leash, and then Winston came in and has just stunk up the joint the past few weeks, and it took to this point to get him back in there. They got him back in there, and he almost pulled this game out for them. With him starting this upcoming week, we'll have to see where it goes from here. But I don't think Winston's getting back in there anytime soon. Touching on Cincinnati, what they did, obviously they won this game, and we're talking up. Well, I'm talking up Tampa Bay, like they won it. Everything that's happening with them, but obviously their defense is still a big concern for them, giving up the 576 total yards. On the offensive side of the ball for them, though, um, I see some good things coming from the run game. It seems that they have found their number one back in Joe Mixon. Obviously, not having the tandem with Giovanni Bernard being hurt. Mixon ran 21 times this past weekend, 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's his best game up to this point this season, and I see him continuing to trend upwards, which is good for Cincinnati. They've always had at least as long as I can remember, they've had a tandem at running back. It's good to see them have a number one. I think that's what they need, and I think that'll do good things for this offense.
Yeah, Mister, I want to be Le'Veon Bell. Did them good. So
yes, he did.
we'll see if he continues his wannabe-esque ways. But yeah, no, he did a good job. He's been doing a good job lately. And I think they need to just switch off to one main feature back and kind of use the other one just as substitute when the other one needs a break.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of teams doing like the tandem of backs, and it obviously works for some teams. Others it doesn't. I really don't feel like it's something that's worked for Cincinnati. Like they've had success, but it's not been anything crazy or innovative that they've tried to do. But I think they'll benefit a lot more from this primary back with Joe Mixon being the head of it. Also with the offense, Tyler Boyd coming out of Pittsburgh University here in Pittsburgh. Obviously, he has emerged this season for the Bengals. Not so much as their number one, but perhaps the new favorite target of Andy Dalton. Him and AJ Green have pretty much split receptions right down the middle, with Green having 45 and Boyd having 49, both making the most of their receptions, respectfully. Each over 600 yards, 687 for Green and 620 for Tyler Boyd, to be exact. I think, like I said, I think he's emerged as a top wide receiver in this league. It's a lethal combination for the Bengals. They got a nice 1-2 punch. And even this week, Tyler Boyd's numbers, they really stand out over AJ Green's with 9 receptions, 138 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think the Bengals, we should be a little bit more worried about them on offense than we have made them out to be. Granted, they kind of struggled against the Steelers. I don't think they did everything that they really wanted to, but I'd be worried about them in the second matchup later on this season.
Yeah, no, I think the Bengals are definitely happy to have Boyd finally after all his injuries and issues and stuff that he's had that's kind of kept him off the field a good bit, kind of finding his rhythm and finding what he needs to do. And, it's translating into numbers. And I think Boyd might not exactly be the main target for them, but going forward, he's definitely, I think, the first guy that Dalton's looking to now to score. If they're in that scenario where they're in the red zone or they need a long first down, that he's looking to Boyd first as opposed to Green, which is funny because it's always been Green since Green has been on the team.
It's kind of a similar situation, really, to what we have in Pittsburgh. Obviously, Boyd his second year in the league, and Juju emerged last year. But what we're seeing this year is Ben being more comfortable, getting the ball to Juju. And I think it's kind of the same situation in Cincinnati with Boyd and with AJ Green. AJ's been getting double covered a lot, as has Antonio Brown here, which is why we're seeing a lot more passes to Juju. Same with to Tyler Boyd, and I think it's going to be like that going forward for Cincinnati, which is good for them. Not that I'm happy about it or anything like that, but they're going to be dangerous through the air. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. The last and final game of the week would be my pick, and that was the Minnesota Vikings and the Saints, which did
Turned
end up
out to be the
being.
game of the week. I'm just gonna throw that out there. You were right.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very entertaining game. Not as high scoring as I thought. We'll get into that. A little interesting facts on those. But the Saints once again just showed their dominance. Got plays done when they needed to play, and kind of stopped the Vikings when they needed to stop them. Didn't stand out any super big splash plays or anything like that. Just to put in perspective, Taysom Hill had over 1/3 of Drew Brees' yards off one pass. So we'll get into that, but this is an interesting stat of the game, how they still managed to dominate and win this game. My first note I have on here, though, is Thielen is the man. Ties Calvin Johnson for 8 consecutive games with 100+ yards. He's looking to break some records this year if he continues his pace. For whatever reason, I have a bad feeling that he's going to get injured or something's going to happen, that he's going to start getting targeted less, and it's going to break. I would love to see it. I think it's a really good feel-good story, how Thielen got into the NFL and how he's playing and stuff. But I've just, for like I said, whatever reason, I have a bad feeling that it's just something's going to snap in that, and he's not going to be able to beat the record this week. Minnesota's very sluggish, to use the run game. And I think if they weren't so sluggish, their offense would open up way more and they would have scored more than 20 points in this game. They had 13 attempts to Latavius Murray, and running with him is working. The 2 prior weeks to this, he's had over 100 yards carrying through the ground, and he's had a touchdown in each of those games. They limited him to 13 attempts, and on that, he had over 4 yards to carry for each attempt. But he only had 40 yards. So I don't know what to make of it, but I know they just need to utilize the run game more in order for their offense to work better, because they didn't score enough in this game, and that was the reason that New Orleans came out on top with over a touchdown on top of them. Drew, I have my exact words here. Does Drew need to do anything for them to win games? No, I really don't think so, obviously. This team's just super talented. I mean, the man had 120 yards passing this game. As an owner of him in fantasy, it's very disappointing. I started Jared Goff in his place, so I'm not too disappointed this week. But wow, 120 yards and they still dominated like they did. It's just crazy. Breeze did what he needed to do, and just kind of let the rest of the team shut the Vikings down and allow the run game to get over 100 yards with the tandem behind Kamara and Ingram, and just kind of silently take over this game and win it. Saints defense, on the other hand, is starting to be a little scary. So they're the number 1 rush defense in the league. Now with Eli Apple and Marshawn Lattimore, they're going to be shut down through the air. They let 359 yards fly through the air against the Vikings, but obviously Kirk is in comeback mode, and that's all they're going to do. Most of the yards that they let through was actually through Williams, who got blown apart on the Minneapolis Miracle, and he's the one who missed the tackle in coverage on that. So I think that's the only weak link that they have on their defense is Williams. So we'll see going forward if he gets demoted a little bit then. And I think if he figures out his issues, he was actually the only person on the Saints D to have an interception, though, oddly enough. If he figures out what he needs to figure out, they're going to be really, really scary on defense, and their offense is just super overpowered. So I think the Vikings don't need to, hang their head too low for this game. The defense did look good for the Vikings. They allowed just 270 yards total for the Saints, but I feel that the defense didn't stop the Saints when they needed to stop them. And that was kind of the whole theme of this game. Vikings couldn't make plays when they needed to make plays, and the Saints made plays when they needed to make plays. Obviously, 270 yards is not a lot at all, but it allowed the Saints to do exactly what they needed to do and get the win. But the Vikings had 359 yards through the air and still lost by 10 points. So I don't know. I just think it goes to show that this was a back and forth showdown, like you said, game of the week. And I thought it'd be a little higher scoring, but ends up that Drew Brees doesn't really need to do much for them to win games. Go ahead.
No, sorry. This just real quick, going back to Drew Brees' stat line, if just in any instance, if you didn't know anything else about a game that happened, if you were given the stat line of 18 completions, 23 yards, 118 completions, or 18 completions, 23 attempts, 120 yards, a touchdown, and a pick, that's Drew Brees' stat line. I guarantee you, nobody is saying that the Saints won that game. They did. They made plays when they had to, and the Vikings didn't make the plays that needed to be made to stop them. This is a very interesting game. It really was.
Yeah, no, it was. I just think the Saints were able to stop any production from the Vikings. The Vikings could move down the field, but then once they got within field goal range or getting close to field goal range, they were just stopped.
Yeah, bend
And
don't
the
break.
Saints,
That's exactly what you need.
yeah, no, and that's exactly what they did. They were able to just give up enough so that you weren't over blitzing or you weren't playing too hard on coverage and stuff and trying to stop every play. They were just kind of allowing this to work, that to work, and then shut them down as soon as they get towards field goal range. And I think that's all the Saints needed to do because obviously their offense didn't need to do much.
Yeah, no, they definitely didn't. And just real quick, what you said about the the Vikings not really having a run game, but still obviously being able to move the ball. If they had just if the run game could be just a little bit better than what it is, the combination of that and the pass game would be even more lethal. Like their numbers would be buffed so much more if they had a solid 1-2 punch with the run and the pass. And they just don't. Obviously, the passing game is still getting it done for them, but they need to get things figured out in the run department.
Yeah, and I don't think it's not on Murray. The last
No, it's not.
2 weeks before this game, or prior to this game, he's had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that was under 25 carries for both of those. So I think they need to stop being so sluggish in the run game and just give him the ball.
And we'll see if they do.
Yeah, we will. Since I just did all the talking, we'll let Mark segue into this the Thursday night preview. Oakland at 1-6 and San Francisco at 1-7.
Okay, so I'm gonna go down this because this game, as we all know, is a giant joke. I'm gonna go down exactly what I have written up here, and then we'll get into some somewhat serious analysis of this. Bullet points for this wonderful Thursday night matchup. Number one, who cares? Number two, does this game even matter to any of you? Does anybody really care? Number three, wait a minute, Derek Carr wasn't traded? News to me. Number four, which team has the best cheerleaders? And from there, we'll go into some serious analysis. One news story coming out of this game tonight is rookie quarterback Nick Mullins is going to be starting for the 49ers. I have no idea who he is, but, he's starting. CJ Beathard is hurt. I'm not exactly sure. He was a 50-50 decision going into today. Obviously, he is not starting. The big intrigue for this game, as it is for a lot of one in whatever teams, is seeing some of the younger guys get an opportunity, and that's what it is here with San Francisco. Nick Mullins has a big opportunity tonight. He has the chance to possibly steal away the starting job from CJ Beathard, and we'll see if he can take this opportunity and grasp it. He had a pretty below par preseason. He had 2 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, which really isn't that good, but he has a chance to redeem himself here tonight.
Yeah, and Nick Mullins is absolutely bald, baby face rookie. When he throws his first pass this game, it will be his first pass thrown in the NFL. So we really don't know what to expect regular season. We saw him in the preseason, obviously, like you said, not too great of stats with that. But going forward, hey, right those wrongs. You definitely have a chance to win that starting job, as Beathard has been pretty lackluster for the 49ers. So I think if he just does okay, he has a chance at winning the starting job. Doesn't even need to do over the top work.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. And moving to the Oakland Raiders, I mean, there's not really too much that can be said here. They are the dumpster fire of the NFL. Obviously, there's multiple one and whatever teams in this league, but out of all of them, the Raiders are by far the worst. They went on a fire sale prior to the trade deadline, getting rid of a bunch of key players, starting with Khalil Mack early on in the season. There's really nothing here for them. I think John Gruden is just kind of hoping to lose out the rest of the season to guarantee yet another high first round pick for them, and they're just kind of building for the future. So I hope San Francisco can come out here and whoop some Oakland ass. I'd be happy to see that, just with what's going on in Oakland and knowing that John Gruden is behind all of it. You know, you hate to see it, what's going on there, but we'll have to see what happens. I don't have this being really a high scoring game. I have San Francisco winning this one 20-10. Nothing special is really going to come from this. We're not really going to learn much. It's hard to say what Nick Mullins is going to do. Obviously, you want to go out there and get the starting job, at least until Jimmy G comes back next year. But Oakland is just going to continue to stink up the NFL, stink up the bed, and they're going to drop the 1-7, and we're going to see San Fran go to 2-7. How exciting!
Very exciting. I actually not going to read the exact quote because I don't have it in front of me, but I read it earlier today. John Gruden was interviewed, and he was asked about the willingness to play in Oakland. Said something along the lines of who doesn't have a cell phone? He's like, I have a cell phone. I have people calling me and telling me that they want to play here. And I think maybe he's a little out of the loop. Maybe he's a little too ignorant, but I don't think anybody really wants to play for a 1-6 Oakland team that sells everyone that is halfway decent away. I think going forward that Johnny Boy just needs to just give it up and let this go. He screwed this team up so far this year. He just needs to let it go and keep his mouth shut about stupid comments that he made earlier. And he just needs to change some things and go forward, get a nice draft to get 3 first-round picks, and maybe look forward to next season, because that's about all you're looking forward to as of right now.
Yeah, and if you guys were wondering, the book on how to turn your team into the Cleveland Browns is currently being written by John Gruden. It's going to release at the end of this season. The key is the first-round picks, and then once you get all those first-round picks, you let them all fizzle out. None of them work out for you, and you just rinse and repeat year after year after year after year after year. I think that's what we're heading for here.
Yeah, and I'm completely ready for it. I'm curious to see who they get in the draft next year, because it's kind of a joke, you know?
Yeah. Just a quick stat correction, because for the second time during the history of this podcast, NFL.com has lied to me. Nick Mullins had 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions in the preseason. Not that that's that much better, but just wanted to make that quick correction. Don't want somebody commenting like, "Hey, you were wrong. What are you talking about?" But that's a Thursday night preview.
To read you the exact quote, I got a cell phone just like you and everybody else. I get a lot of phone calls from people that are dying to come play here. I'm just telling you, they're dying to play for the Raiders.
He's out of his mind.
I think he is just a little nuts. I think going forward for this game, San Fran needs to win, because they lost to the Cardinals last week. And God, have we ripped the Cardinals up and down, and for them to lose to them was just sad. But little shocker there. I have the Oakland Raiders beating San Fran this week. or today, I should say. And I have Oakland beating them 24-21.
Okay.
Like you said, maybe might not even watch this game. Who knows? But we'll see. We'll see. I think Oakland gets their second and only remaining win on the season this week.
I hope they don't. I just really do. It's just, I don't like to see it, but at the same time, it's always entertaining to just sit back and watch a team crumble and know that, the root cause of it is someone, and that someone being John Gruden. It's like, ha ha ha, like evil laugh, like just sitting back and watching it.
Oh yeah, I understand. There's some certain hates I have for people in the league that I could definitely relate to you in that aspect.
I think
Uh,
just like real quick, I think for I never had a problem with him. I didn't really know him other than as a coach and then a commentator. I think when we saw him ride Vontez Burfict last season when the Bengals and the Steelers played, I believe that was the second matchup of the season. I think that's when all the hate for him started because it was just kind of disgusting to see how all over him he really was. He actually, I don't have an exact quote, but I do recall him saying that he would trade away a star player just to have Vontez Burfict on his team. And, well, you see what he has traded away this year.
I think he's a little lost in his trade values.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. Good luck to the Oakland Raiders and their fans, though.
Yeah, we have love for you. Um, the league news is, in fact, we're going to do the podcast today, and obviously the trade deadline this past week that it was huge, and a lot of teams lost out, and a lot of teams. I can't even really say won a lot because there wasn't. I don't really think anybody got in return a season changer of a type of player. Obviously, Amari Cooper went before the trade deadline. I don't see anything special happening there. I'm just going to read off the list of people that were traded away that I felt was notable, and we can kind of talk about it. So Golden Tate went to the Eagles, left Detroit, went to Philly for a third-round pick. Demaryius Thomas and a seventh-round pick, which is kind of goofy, went to Houston in return for a fourth-round pick and then a seventh-round pick in return. So I don't really know if it was maybe compensation or something along those lines, but a seventh-round pick was sent and then returned back to Denver. Clinton Dix of the Packers went over to the Redskins, which I think will kind of be the only real game changer there, and make that Redskins defense a little bit more shut down. Terrell Pryor was not traded, but he was released, and then he was signed by the Bills as of yesterday. Ty Montgomery was sent away once again by the Packers to the Ravens for a seventh-round pick, and I think fumble maybe had something to do with that. And Landry Jones, our wonderful ex-backup quarterback, was signed with Jacksonville. Obviously, I'm joking. He wasn't wonderful.
Oh, poor Landry. We'll go way back here. I was still kind of shocked when they cut him. I didn't really agree with it, whether he was great or not. I felt it was important to have a solid veteran backup in there, but we're past that. It is what it is. A bold prediction coming out of this Landry Jones signing: come week 11 in Jacksonville, he's going to start for the Jaguars, and they are going to beat the Steelers. I see it happening, and I don't know why, but I really do. From what I read, he signed with them during the bye week just to get some reps. They wanted to see what he was capable of. Obviously, there's no guarantee that he's going to.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
He's not capable of anything.
But if he does end up sticking with his Jacksonville team, I'm telling you right now, he's going to start for them. He's going to beat the Steelers in week 11. It's just going to come back.
Listen, I agree with half your statement there. I see him starting, but I don't see him beating his wife, let alone the fucking Steelers, okay?
You just wait. You wait. We're gonna come back to this in 3, 4. What is it? 4 weeks away. I'm telling you. Um,
We're coming out with not hot takes anymore. We're coming away with burnt takes. That's how hot these takes are. Okay.
burnt to a fucking crisp. Getting away from Landry. The only other real, and you were talking about haha Clinton Dix, but for me, the Texans picking up Thomas when Fuller went down was two. It's been 2 weeks now, a week. I felt it was important for them to go out and get a solid number two, and you could really argue that they went out and they got a number one. Demaryius Thomas, not quite in his prime anymore. Just I think on the outside of it, I think he's still a solid receiver. And with the Texans' offense on the up and up here in the past couple weeks, I think this makes them even more dangerous. And we've all seen what Demaryius Thomas can do with his arm as well. So he's a multi-threat for them.
Yeah, I might have to disagree with you a little bit. I just think actually from what I heard, the rumor mill, Sanders actually had much more interest throughout the league as compared to Thomas. So I think if somebody was able to get Sanders, then that would have been wonderful for them. But Thomas, I just think he's slowly on the decline, and I think Fuller wasn't a real big loss in the first place, other than taking away coverage and opportunities for Hopkins. I just think that they could have been okay slapping any receiver in there. My man Kiki QT could have stepped up and just filled in the place for Fuller, because I think on a good team, Fuller's a number 3, number 4 receiver. But on a Texans team, he's number 2. So
yeah, well, on my Madden Ultimate team, he's my number 1 receiver. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm glad for that, but the man is not that special, and I think Thomas they got him basically for nothing, so you can't really be mad about that.
It's not like they gave up a lot. If they had given up a lot, this trade would look a lot worse. But I think what they got him for, I think it was a good deal for Houston. It's going to definitely benefit them. It's not going to, I don't think take them to the next level or anything, but they're going to maintain where they were, I think, with Fuller. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and who the hell did the Eagles throw to now? Now that they got Golden Tate, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, Jordan Matthews, Zach Ertz,
I don't understand why. I mean, maybe there wasn't a running back that they liked available. That's what I think they should have went for. But this, I mean, it doesn't hurt them, but I don't necessarily know if it helps them really either.
Are they slotting Golden Tate into the running back spot? Was that their thoughts behind it because he's shifty and smaller? I was just a little confused once they picked. I felt that they had enough weapons through the air for Wentz to throw. Obviously, he has 3 good receivers in Aguilar, Matthews, and Jeffrey. And if you want to argue and say that Ertz is a receiver, but for good, I wouldn't say super outstanding, other than Ertz being a complete mismatch for every matchup that they have, whether it be a safety or a linebacker. But in regards to their receivers, they're all good. None of them I would say are like super elite. But to add a Golden Tate, who's probably, I'd say, arguably the best out of that whole receiving core now, where does he play into the mix? Where do they slot him? What's his position? You think he's number 1? You think he's number 2? You think he's slot guy?
I honestly, I don't know what they're gonna do with him. It's a head scratcher. Like I saw this trade, and you're listing everybody that they already have. There was just no need to bring Golden Tate in. Again, I don't think it hurts them, but I don't know if it benefits them, because now there's almost I guess there's never enough options, but I do think there's just too many now for Carson Wentz. I don't know,
and I feel that's a little bit too much of luck to have. Obviously Jeffrey has a nice contract. Tate has a nice contract also. So you got to make a decision here when their contracts are up, who you want to keep and who you want to take away. And you might lose a player that you really want just because you wanted to pick up all these people. And especially when they signed Jordan Matthews, I was a little confused about that because of how many weapons that they had. Now they go and sign another like top tier receiver. It's just crazy. And I think that they didn't really give up much for this either. A third round pick. I mean, if I was to say the value on Golden Tate, I would have said a second round pick would be gone if he was to leave.
Yeah, no, they definitely got him at a good price. I mean, if they had gotten him for even a later pick, that would have been even better for them, obviously. But this will be interesting. I still think they would have benefited more from a running back. Le'Veon Bell, that would have been great, but obviously that didn't happen. So I don't know. We'll see. One other one actually we don't have written down here that was actually pretty important that I remembered. Dante Fowler getting traded from Jacksonville to the Rams, an edge rusher that the Rams needed. This makes them just even more lethal all around. This was a big trade. That I can't. I thought I had put that one down or not. I guess I didn't, obviously. But what did you think?
It did happen, folks.
Yeah, no,
okay?
it did happen. We just didn't write it down. Stuff does happen that we don't write down, believe it or not.
I know. It's unheard of. It's absolutely unheard of that there's mistakes made.
A quote coming from Fowler is just he was looking forward to a fresh start. I think the Jacksonville defense was obviously under a lot of pressure after everything that Jalen Ramsey said prior to the season starting. So I'm sure he was probably thrilled to get out of there and obviously going to the best team in the league in LA. This is a big win for them.
I think by fresh start, he means a fresh win because Jacksonville doesn't have many of them lately.
No, they do not, and they really didn't give up too much for Fowler as well. They gave up a third-round pick in 2019 and a fifth-round in 2020. I think the Rams they definitely won in this trade for sure.
Yeah, and they just don't have anybody to draft going forward. So God hopes that they can win with what they have.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I was a Rams fan, win the Super Bowl, I'll take 5-10 years of nothing. I'm cool with that. Get the championship, win now. That's my attitude, and that's what they're looking to do.
To end this, we're gonna do an over under. Terrell Pryor, okay.
Okay.
Over or under 300 yards for the rest of the season?
Receiving, or you think he's going to be passing it all?
No. I think
even with that mess in Buffalo, you don't think they're going to try him at quarterback?
No, I think those days are gone, and I think his acceptance of that is gone.
One other question before that: is Derek Anderson seriously injured? Do we know that for sure?
Concussion, so he's in concussion protocol.
Okay, so he could be week to week, which leaves Nathan Peterman as the starter. I'm gonna say over. I think he goes in there as their
he has to be their number one.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I would say, like, as long as it works out and he doesn't show signs of declining or anything like that, does what they need him. I say over. Not by much, maybe, but if he goes in there being their number one, I say over. I would say closer to maybe like 500. Like, he's going to be the only one to get the ball on that team other than LaShawn McCoy.
And McCoy hasn't been doing much either. They were a wild card team. I think they're turning dumpster fire right now. Kelvin Benjamin would be like their only other option, but I think Pryor's better than Benjamin. So I think Pryor's your number one guy in Buffalo here as soon as he gets like slated and knows the playbook. But yeah, no, I think he's number one. Yeah,
if they can get Josh Allen back in there, they could have a nice connection between the two of them.
They might be able to win a game if he gets back in there.
Yeah, they might. But I think we can count the Bills in as a wild card contender if Terrell Pryor goes in as quarterback. Just saying.
Like I said, burnt takes today. Burnt takes.
Some good ones, though. Some real good ones. You wait until week 11. Landry Jones.
Some real crispy, super crispy takes here. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up unless you have anything else to say, Marty.
No, I think that's all. This was a damn interesting week of football, and this Thursday night game, boy howdy, am I looking forward to it. So we're going into another interesting one, I suppose.
Nothing but excitement coming from the over here. So we are going to conclude then, and we will be putting up the the preview episode at a normal time. Like I said, sorry about this late one. It's just life happened, but we'll be back on track for the preview. So we'll see you then. Everybody have a good weekend, and thank you for listening to us yak, as Marty likes to say.
It's cool. You stole my line. Thank you guys for listening to us. Yeah, as always, have a good weekend. We will see you soon.
See ya.